Welcome to Hearts and Stripes, your one-stop shop for all things military marriage. I hope our discussions and interviews equip you with the tools to start or grow a beautiful marriage as we address the benefits and challenges of mil marriage. I believe life's most precious moments are worth celebrating, so I'll help you design your marriage blueprint in alignment with your core values. Thank you for joining us, and remember to rate, subscribe, and review. Let's do this. Hello, and welcome to Hearts and Stripes podcast. This is your host, Bree Carroll, and I am excited to bring you another Heart to Heart. So today is going to be a short episode, but hopefully a mighty one as we discuss the topic of surrender. But before we do that, I have a couple of things you have to know about. So first and foremost, you should know that this episode is brought to you by Military Marriage Day. For those who know me, know Military Marriage Day is a holiday that I created, and we will actually celebrate the second year of Military Marriage Day on August the 14th. I am super excited to let you know that you can RSVP today for Military Marriage Day. What that does, it gets you entered to win the amazing prizes that we have for Military Marriage Day and keeps you abreast on all of the updates for the holiday. The RSVP is absolutely free, and you should definitely head over to militarymarriageday.com to do that now. Also, I want to remind people those early bird tickets for the MMD Summit are available now as well. These are for our service couples who want to go a little deeper. You really want to be intentional about investing in your relationship and hear from our marriage experts that are going to equip you with creating and building strong, sustainable marriages. The Military Marriage Day Summit is for you, and those early bird tickets are right at your fingertips. That also can be found at militarymarriageday.com. So don't delay. Head over there, get RSVP'd, get your MMD Summit tickets now. That's it for Military Marriage Day for now. So the other important announcement that I wanted you guys to all know is that it has almost been 365 days since the Military Family Town Hall that I did in 2020. So a little background on that. When the pandemic was going on, there was a lot of tension and racially charged activities going on. And I was really struck by that, being an African American, and wanted to have some intentional discussions around race in our military families. And that's what we did in 2020. We did I think it was a 2-hour long conversation on race where we interviewed different thought leaders in the military community. And we just had a really healthy discussion on that subject matter. Well, it being a year almost to that date, we are actually going to do a follow-up conversation, the Military Family Town Hall, with the subject and theme being, what did we learn? So this will actually live stream on June 19th. That's Juneteenth. So the Military Family Town Hall with the theme, what did we learn, will be streaming on June 19th. And you can find that and tune in on my page as the Air Force Spouse of the Year. So if you head to Facebook, you can go ahead and stream and find it at Bree Carroll 2020 AFI Air Force Spouse of the Year Facebook page. That is where you can tune into the follow-up discussion regarding race and our military families. So I'm super excited to continue that discussion. It'll be a lot shorter of a forum this year, but again, another meaningful conversation as we just continue to figure out and work together and see what impacts have been accomplished. Where do we go from here? What's been successful? What still needs to be discussed? And I think this conversation is going to be very timely. And I hope that it is a activity that is looked forward to during Juneteenth of 2021. So let's dive right into our discussion on surrender. So the first question that I have on this discussion is, what does it look like to go with the flow in your marriage? So I'm asking this question because surrender sometimes can look like just going with the flow. And one of the ways that I have personally experienced that is during my mini vacation to Viva Las Vegas. So we are actually enjoying some time in Las Vegas now. And my husband has been very thoughtful about tapping me on my shoulder and saying, honey, sometimes you just need to go with the flow. I am naturally a planner, which means I would like to map out the course of the day, not down to the minute per se, but just have an agenda that we follow. And anyone who is kind of like me when it comes to planning, that gives you a sense of security. It makes you feel like you've thought through, you're going to maximize on your time and hit all the things that you want to do. But that can also bring some stress into your vacation, especially if you go off schedule, if you don't hit all the things. So I love that my husband was able to remind me to surrender the schedule and the agenda because we're on vacation. So we really just had a great time going with the flow and seeing where the day took us. And it really took some different turns than I would have thought we would. We still have a couple of days here during the time of this recording. That's where I'm actually recording from. So I am really practicing this art of surrender, if you will, presently as it relates to my vacation. And then on a deeper level, I'm also practicing this in this new season. As I've mentioned before, I am uncertain if I will continue to serve as a DoD employee and continue my career as a civil engineer. I've been in that career field for 11 wonderful years. I've done almost everything that I wanted to do. And now in this new season and with this sudden PCS, things may look different moving forward. I may be doing entrepreneurship full time, and that's the plan right now. That's what it looks like. It's shaken up and mapping out to be. And I have really surrendered to this concept of, if it is for me, then I will go back as a GS employee and continue to serve the mission in that way. But I've also surrendered to the fact that in this new season, serving the mission may look differently. And it may be through the work that I do with this podcast, with my coaching and other things that will be coming very soon. And I'm excited to share with you. But that is what surrender looks like for me. But what does that look like for you? What does going with the flow and surrender look like for you and your relationship? Think about that. Take a second, maybe jot some thoughts down. So the way we're going to break down this conversation is looking at 4 definitions of surrender. So these definitions we're taking straight from Webster. So shout out to the dictionary, y'all. And we will just go through the 4 different definitions of surrender, the act of surrender. We're talking about that verb here. So the first definition that we have on surrender is to yield to the power, control, or possession of another upon compulsion or demand. So with this definition, I'm going to bring you this first point of, it's required. So sometimes your relationship or circumstance requires surrender. So a personal example that we've lived through is this PCS. So this recent PCS that we did, we actually did a full Diddy. And for anyone who has ever done a full Diddy knows that we were a little crazy for doing that. So it actually wasn't our decision. It was a circumstance that we actually had to surrender to. And just short background story on that is in our area, they didn't have enough movers to move us in the time frame to meet our report no later than date. So the two options that they gave us was to put our things in storage or to do this full Diddy. If we put our things in storage, we still would have had to come back and be present for the movers to take our things out. And that was estimated for July timeframe. Well, our report no later than was 31 May. So that was not an option that best served us. So we went ahead full force, surrendered our previous agenda, and did the PCS as a Diddy. Again, this was something that was required. Now, we could have bucked against the system. We didn't have to surrender in this way, but that would have brought a lot more stress into our marriage. It would have brought more disagreements into our relationship as we were fighting against something that we really didn't have a whole lot of control over, but we surrendered to the best option for us based off of the circumstance surrounding it. So that is our first point to note when it comes to surrender, that sometimes it's required. So let's head to this next definition of surrender, which I actually really like. And this definition is surrender to give up completely or agree to forego, especially in favor of another. I really like this definition of surrender because it gives me the thought process that it's agreeable. Surrender is agreeable. And in this concept, agreeing in favor of your spouse is not a bad thing. So when you agree or you forego something in favor of another person, let's say it's your spouse in this scenario, you're being agreeable in your surrender. And the big thing to note when it comes to this is, does it have the best interest of your marriage, of your relationship, of your family, of the circumstance in mind when you're being agreeable? Oftentimes it is. We just have different ways to do the same type of thing. And maybe your spouse taking the lead and you being agreeable with it is a great act of surrender that you may need in this present season. The other thing to think about is, what is the big picture? What is the end goal? What is that big thing that is helping you and continuing to point your marriage in the right direction? So if this is what you need to do in your present season, I highly encourage that you be agreeable as a means of surrendering in your current circumstance. The next definition: to give oneself up into the power of another, especially as a prisoner. Now, y'all, I know when you hear surrender, that's probably the definition that comes to mind. It's something more negative. It's something that feels like you are like raising your hands to the enemy, bowing down, and you are now a prisoner, if you will, to this surrender, this act of surrender. Well, let me just encourage you to maybe tweak this definition a little bit and think of it as surrender being strategic. So it's strategic. And what I mean by that is, if you think about any war or any major battle or movie maybe that you've seen depicting war, there are times when they surrender. And even knowing, like, in history, the people who are triumphant, or the side that is triumphant, oftentimes during war, they do surrender battles. They don't win every single battle, and then they are ultimately the winners, or the people whose agenda is furthered at the end of, as the end result of war. It actually is strategic to surrender in certain cases. And I would just ask the question of you and challenge you and say, what are you avoiding feeling captive of? I'll say it again. What are you avoiding feeling captive of? Because oftentimes when we think of this prisoner, maybe you're concerned about being prisoner to someone else's good idea. Or it's something that you didn't come up with. So you feel like you're going to be captive to this concept that is not, didn't originate with you. But I mean, that's when we go back to that second point about being agreeable. Does it serve the bigger picture? And we have to weigh that in as we make this strategic. So is this a strategic move that you can make for the greater good of your marriage, of your relationship? Are you surrendering in a strategic way to kind of push your relationship forward, to get to the end goal? So, our final definition for surrender is to give oneself over to something such as an influence. And I really liked this one because it brings me to our fourth point, that surrender is key. Surrender is key. And the way that I want to break this one down is thinking of surrender as an act of faith. So, the challenge question that I have for you here is, what is life creating through you that you may be resisting? I'm going to ask that question again because I know it's kind of deep. But before I repeat it, I want to go a little deeper with that surrender as an act of faith. So, I am a God girl. I am a believer. And when I talked about surrendering for career purposes and what that looks like, this fourth point is really what I feel like I'm walking through in this surrender as an act of faith. Am I going to step out on faith and believe that me as an entrepreneur, betting on myself is the move that I need to make, and surrendering how it happens, what it needs to look like for my family to thrive, for my relationship to thrive, surrendering these things as an act of faith. That's really what I'm being challenged with this season. So the question here is, what is life creating through you that you may be resisting? I can say, me personally, I was resisting the way it had to look. So we have financial goals that we have for our family. There are things that, you need money to go on vacations, right? You need money to build up those college funds and save for retirement and things. Well, I had a certain way that needed to happen, maybe through working as a GS employee. But I was resisting that could look a different way, that life could be creating something bigger and a different means of hitting the same end goal. And I like to think of it kind of like the end goal is maybe up on a hill, but there's a lot of different paths that can take us there. So am I being resistant to the path that is being lit up for me due to this current, this sudden PCS that has shortened the time frame that I thought I would be in a role? And this is something that I think is worth thinking through for yourself, because life will open doors that are unexpected. They'll throw some curveballs that maybe you just weren't ready for. But what are those situations and circumstances creating in your life? What is it creating in your marriage? What are the opportunities found in these different scenarios that you may be resistant of, and you might need to just surrender to so that you can get to something even better? That is why this fourth point is that surrender is key. And to kind of bring this point full circle and kind of wrap it up, I had the opportunity of listening to a podcast, Redefining Wealth. And this author, Kurt Blackson, who is the author of The Magic of Surrender, was on there, and he made such an impactful statement on there. And I want to share it with you. Blackson said, surrender is the password to greatness, freedom, and the next level. I'll say that again. Surrender is the password to greatness, freedom, and the next level. Coot says password. I'm saying surrender is key. And I really feel like this is something that I hope serves you in this season, looking at surrender a lot differently than maybe you did before. So let's summarize surrender. It's required, it's agreeable, it's strategic, and surrender is key. So the resource that I have for you for this podcast episode, and one that I really need to talk about more, is the Hearts and Stripes Facebook group. Y'all, we are hanging out in our Facebook group, and I apologize because I don't invite you over there enough. If you are a part of the Hearts and Stripes Family, I encourage you to head over to Facebook, join our Facebook group. In it this month, we are actually going through the identity program. So if you maybe missed out on signing up for the program and getting full access to the group coaching and all the modules, don't worry. In the Hearts and Stripes Facebook group, you will see the reflection questions that are from the identity program that will be shared there. And you have the opportunity to join us when we go live and talk about the different components of the identity program. It's kind of like a sneak peek into the program that you get to experience because you are in our Facebook group. So I hope you take advantage of that resource and join Hearts and Stripes Facebook group. Now, for my favorite part of this episode and every episode, it's Heart Tracks. I absolutely love our Heart Tracks playlist on Spotify. You can find it when you search Heart Tracks 2. That's Heart Tracks 2 on Spotify. And today's Heart Track is, of course, Surrender by Flame and V Rose. So I love this song. I heard it several years ago, and I really like this song. And I'll share a little bit I'll share the lyrics of the chorus. And the chorus basically says, I'm never gonna run away from you. I open up my heart to you. I'm yours. I'm pulling out my flag and I surrender. Anchor of my ship, you can hold me down. I'm never going to run. No, I'm never going to run. And this is an inspirational song. It's talking about surrendering as an act of faith. But I like these lyrics because it also can make you think of surrender in your marriage with your spouse. I love how it has that line in there that you can hold me down. And that's really what I feel like we do as partners in our marriage relationship. We hold one another down, and surrendering for the good of our relationship is something that we need to be thoughtful about doing. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Hearts and Stripes. Make sure you check out that playlist, Hearts and Stripes playlist on Spotify is simply Heart Tracks 2. And I hope you enjoyed this Heart Track, Surrender by Flame and V Rose.
Thank you for tuning in. Remember to rate, subscribe, and review. This is Hearts and Stripes. We are the few, the proud, that aim high and are forged by love. Always ready, always there. We are Mill Marriage Strong.